As we proceed, you're going to find out how it is everybody's business. Let's go to the next slide. All right. Everyone feels insecurity according to Leo Babaota. It is part of our lives which are filled with uncertainty, no matter how much we want to get rid of that uncertainty. But in truth, no one is free from feeling insecure. We feel self-doubt, anger, fear, and frustration. All comes from uncertainty of life. It is not a problem that we feel insecure. It is not a problem that we feel insecure. That's according to the author. But the problem comes from how we deal with it. Now, for you to understand this, like for instance, the fact of envy in our workplace, in our homes, at schools, everywhere, just envy alone is an indicator of the fact of insecurity. Because once somebody gets envious, jealous, that person is insecure and is capable of doing anything funny. But how you're able to manage this condition or this situation is what matters, and that's what Leo is trying to tell us. Let's go to the next slide. All right, so definitions. The first is, what is insecurity? A state of anxiety, unrest, nervousness, panic, etc. And you can attest to this fact that in Nigeria today, in all the regions, we're having issues with unrest. We're having issues with nervousness. Everybody is nervous. Everybody is afraid. Everyone is scared of what is going to happen next. The question still remains, who is responsible for this? What is really the cause of this fact of insecurity? What is security? Being free from threat, freedom from or resilience, in brackets, strategic systematic reaction against potential harm caused by others. Of course, the issue of insecurity is often caused by people, and security as well must be put in place by humans. What is security management? A framework of policies and procedures that includes all legal, physical, and technical controls. Of course, you know today that even insecurity matters have gone highly technological. And so it's also required that the management trends for curbing insecurity should also go technological. Very important. What is emerging security trend? Modern day methods and technologies of security management, e.g. risk assessment process and reviews. Information intelligence gathering, which is very important, very key, and analysis, policy and control frameworks. Of course, the government has a duty to do that. Critical incident management and IT technologies. If these are in place, then we are sure, to curb insecurity. Let's look a little bit at the historical background of insecurity in Nigeria. And we have things like bad governance, economic imbalance, and marginalization. Of course, you know that the issue of marginalization is key, even though we'll not be doing name calling. Ethno-religious tolerance is another issue. Poor, weak security apparatus, of course, another problem. Government needs to fund this. Loss of traditional value and moral system for me, which is one of the core. And then porous borders and armed proliferation. And then finally, politically motivated insecurity, thuggery and instigations. Now, we talk about thuggery, it's obvious, but the fact of instigation tends to be silent, but it's very key. Because when you have the fact of instigation, you cause more problems. If you pass a very dangerous word across, maybe on social media, you end up reaching millions of people, and you end up causing the issue of insecurity in the country. So it's very key. It's very important that we give attention to that. Major causes or indicators of insecurity in Nigeria: ethno-religious conflicts, armed robbery, terrorism, illiteracy and lack of skill. These tend to be silent but very important as well. You agree with me that people who lack skill, who do not have a job, would have no choice other than to get involved in something funny. All right, poor leadership and governance. Of course, we have people who are incompetent, as leaders. We also have people who lack integrity. That's a fact of corruption. Okay, porous borders is there. Unemployment is another one. Of course, the current rate is 33%. Placing Nigeria as the second highest on the global list by Bureau of Statistics. You know what that means? That's a very big problem. It's a very key indicator. Then corruption is also there. In fact, the fact of corruption respects no degree. In fact, of your degree or qualification, you need to make sure that you're free from corruption. Corruption is not about what profession. Corruption is about your decision to stay free from it. And that's one of the biggest challenges we're facing in Nigeria today, the fact of corruption. Political-based violence, thuggery, and then imbalance, talking about different development speed economically in the country. When some aspects or some regions are developing, some are not developing, it will bring about imbalance. And of course, that will bring about the issue of envy and jealousy, and some set of persons who want to react. All right, let's go to the next. So these are the major indicators. We look at types of insecurity. We have professional insecurity, where job insecurity, fear of losing a job is an issue. Of course, you know, a lot of persons work in the place and they are not even sure of how to retain their job, you know, because of still the issue of maybe jealousy or someone does not like you and all of that in the workplace. Well, there are laws actually in place, but the question is, to what extent can these laws be rightly enforced? That's the problem. All right, then we'll have the issue of social insecurity, fear of relating with others, nervousness. People are afraid of relating with people. In fact, even the issue of tribalism is there, and other issues. And then economic insecurity, talking about unstable, you know, income. You're not sure of what happens next because the country is not safe. Of course, you know that security is the top on the list. If you must talk about any other thing, security is what? Is key, because people can't go about doing their business when they are not what? Secure. People cannot do anything without being what? Secure. So security is key. So these are the types of insecurity we have. Let's go to next. Still on the introduction. We look at description of group types causing unrest in Nigeria. I didn't want to do name calling like I said, so I just have to pick out those activities that they carry out. Okay, you have thugs, you have terrorists, you have kidnappers, you have robbers, you have assassins, you have human traffickers, you have bandits, and then you have people called foreign terrorist fighters. These are according to the United Nations Security Council. They refer to them as foreign terrorist fighters. These are people who perpetrate evil from a strange country into another country. That's what the United Nations Security Council called them. Let's move to the next. Here we look at the role of security agencies in curbing insecurity. One is internal security, keeping peace within the borders of Nigeria. Generally, by upholding the national and defending against national law and defending against internal security threats. Two is counter-terrorism and anti-terrorism. Incorporates the practice, military tactics, techniques, and strategy that government, military, law enforcement, business, and intelligence agencies use to combat or prevent terrorism according to Wikipedia. Then we also have surveillance, okay, monitoring behaviors, monitoring activities, and all of that. Of course, you know that is key and very important. Then we also have counterintelligence, and then investigating some other types of serious crimes against the state. All of this accounts for what security agencies are doing. And on that, I would recommend that in course of trying to bring or to recruit security agencies, one of the things that must be taken into consideration is the skill level of development of such persons or such personnel. And also would advise that the government should give attention to continuous development. It's called CPD, because that's going to help to be able to provide the necessary skills required to be able to carry out, security. Let's go to next. Now here we have the recommendation of United Nations Security Council, findings and recommendations. But I'm just going to make it very brief because it's more because of time. All right, you know that the United Nations Security Council is a component of United Nations, of course. And there are three things that I've highlighted that they do. One is ensuring international peace and security. That's one. And then two is recommending the admission of new UN members into General Assembly and then approving any changes made to the United Charter. A charter is like an establishment, okay, that determines equity of states, that equity of member states. Like Nigeria, is a member of United Nations, and so it is required or expected that there should be equity amongst all the member states, of United Nations. Let's move forward. All right. So these are the aspects of recommendations and findings of the United Nations Security Council. They have what is called border management, and they have countering violent extremism. They have gender, they have human rights, they have information and communication technology, that's ICT. They also have international, regional, and sub-regional cooperation. They have law enforcement, they have legal, regional focus, research, terrorism, financing, and all of that. I'm going to give a summary of the recommendations extracted from these facets because of time. So I'll get the next slide. Let's go to the next slide. All right, the first from those aspects of recommendations and findings has to do with effective border security of marine, land, and air. And of course, you know that these are the ways through which terrorists could always come in. So effective border security is very important. And then visa requirements and passport capture or appropriation. The third is coordinated border management or close cooperation amongst border authorities. Cooperation, because of course you know the issue of collaboration is key if security must be maintained. They have crime control policies. Policies must be in place, to determine guidelines for crime control. And then you have security gadgets provisions. Of course, government has the duty to do that. And then you have the civil society empowerment. Talk about women, youth, cultural, religious leaders. Of course, if you don't empower these various sects, you have an issue of insecurity. In fact, according to the United Nations Security Council, women are not only victims of violence, they are also perpetrators now. So if you don't empower them, you are bound to have issues. And of course, the core, which has to do with the youths, is also very important. So empowerment is key because if you have an empowered society, you have less, issues having to do with insecurity. They have training for border securities, and they have the use of API, which is advanced passenger information. This has to do with airlines, passing information about a passenger to border authorities is a way of also determining security. And then engagements with local authorities. Of course, local authorities understand more about their localities, and it's always important to involve them in security issues. And then inclusive representation of youths and women. This is part of inclusive governance to ensure that they are part of security strategy development. So we're going to go to the next recommendation and finding. Talking about counter-instigation. I want to talk about this a little because it's very important. The issue of instigation is very, very, very dangerous. Like I said earlier, it's very, very dangerous, and that's why the government must wake up to giving information that would help, to subpedal on instigations, incitements. Incitements could cause so much problems in the society, and that's why this must be in place. All right, and then next is establish an effective procedure to grant refugee status to eligible asylum. Now, why they're saying this is because some people take advantage of the refugee issues who are terrorists to get into foreign territories. That's why this must be put in place. And then intelligence that foreign terrorist fighters use refugee status as means of escape, like what I just said. So focus on women as not just victims, but as perpetrators of crime. Also need to be taken into consideration. This is talking about vigilance. And they have collaboration with member states. Of course, that cannot be overemphasized. Respect for human rights and the rule of law is also very important. This is regard to issue of law enforcement. And then strategy by member states to counter or suppress terrorist recruitment that is online. So which means security measures also has to go technological. As insecurity advances, security also needs to what? To advance. And I don't believe that Nigeria cannot do this. I believe that there are some hitches to this because if you don't know what to do, you can borrow brains. If you don't know what to do, you can consult experts. So I don't think that we lack that ability to consult or to get the right expertise, but there are some hitches, which is a reason these things are not working. Can you help me go to the next slide, please? All right, so like I said, I have a full detail of this. Because of course, time I'm not going to go through that. So just flip through so I can go to the last thing I want to discuss. Yeah, just go. These are details of each of those recommendations. Just go. Go. About 15 slides. Go. All right, that's okay. So finally, I'll be talking about effects of and remedies for insecurity in Nigeria. The first is effects of insecurity in Nigeria, then I'll go to remedies. Let's go quickly. All right, so according to Dr. Charles Omole, these are where his own recommendations, okay, his own views of findings, in regards to effects of insecurity, okay? So he talked about disruption of economic activity. Of course, like I said, where there is no security, there cannot be an effective economic activity, all right? Then decrease in foreign direct investment. Nobody wants to invest in a country where their investment will not be secure. Decline in productivity, of course, connected to economic issues. And then deepening corruption at all levels. Of course, the more insecurity you have, the more corruption or corrupt practices you're bound to have. And then you have possible national isolation, restriction on travel abroad. Of course, when there's so much insecurity in the country, other countries don't want you to come in. Of course, you know today that even on social media, if you're talking with anybody and they get to know you're a Nigerian, they will first of all pause. I want to know exactly who they're dealing with, because of the fact of what Instagram. That's why we need to do a proper and detailed rebranding, a sincere one at that matter, because that's the only way we can move forward. Let's go to next. All right. So remedies for insecurity in Nigeria. I have the first here, which is by the European Journal of Social Sciences Studies. First, they talked about career, which is in bracket technical or vocational education. Of course, you know that education is one very primary, a very fundamental, factor or key to ensuring that you don't have insecurity in any country. In fact, I've been one of those persons recommending for a change of our educational institution structures.